G'day, legends, and welcome to the Wednesday Pot Noodle on Celtic Down Under. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me tonight, as usual, are Willie and Shane. And we've got someone here on holiday from the Monday podcast. We've got Paul. How are you, Paul?
Yeah, I'm good, Jared. Thanks for having me along, guys. A little hiatus on the weekend review, so nice to pop across to the Pot Noodle.
How you doing, Shane?
Oh, good. Thanks, Jared. Just been kicking back and enjoying the cricket where not much has been happening. It's been relatively, calm and no controversy whatsoever. In Australia going 2-0 up. And Johnny Bairstow, next time stay in your crease. That's all I'm going to say.
Shane, I don't know what you're talking about, mate. Twitter's stopped everyone being able to see anything. Nothing happened, right?
The worst time to bring in these limit exceedance or whatever you want to call it. It's really dampened the fun that I think I could have had.
And how you doing, Willie?
I'm doing pretty well. We've got a bit of a winter frost setting in here in New Zealand. It's getting a bit. Other than that, I'm doing pretty good.
Just having a think here. We got Willie at one side of us, and we got Paul at the other. What's that, about a 4-hour time zone difference between the two of you? And about 3 different time zones. There you go. We're covering all bases. Happy days. It's Australia and New Zealand covered for you. So, got a bit of fun stuff to talk about tonight. Quite a lot of transfer news. So we can jump straight into it. But, Shane, I'm going to you first because you're the proud owner of a Celtic top with Mooy 13 on the back. I'd like to know your thoughts on Aaron Mooy retiring from all forms of football.
Yeah, so saw the rumours a few weeks ago and was a little bit surprised. Didn't really know what to make of it. But then obviously the news broke earlier this week that maybe now's the time for him. Look, I'll comment on it from an Australian perspective, and then I'll talk about it in a Celtic perspective. So, yeah, a little bit surprised, and that hasn't changed despite rethinking about it over the course of the week. Clearly, whatever injury he's recently had, it's been a bit tough for him to get over, and so now's the right time for him. From an Australian perspective, I've always long admired Aaron and the way he plays, even at his time at Melbourne City, despite the rivalry between Melbourne City and Melbourne Victory. But particularly when he played for Australia, he was tremendous to watch. I just love the way he plays. He always seems like he's 2 steps ahead, and we got to see that at Celtic when he was playing here. And one of the things about him from an Australian perspective is that when Aaron started to go overseas, when he was going over to Huddersfield and then down to Brighton, it was at a time where Australia didn't really have a lot of top-line talent going overseas and going into big leagues. And he's almost a little bit of that bridge between our golden generation to the new set of Socceroos that we have who are making their mark overseas now. So I think his place in Australian football, which is already pretty strong, will actually only grow post his retirement. Now, in terms with Celtic, look, I was quite bullish when he joined. I was really excited about him coming along and playing under Ange. Look, I think it's fair to say I don't think people were necessarily against it, but it was relatively unheralded, and it took him a little while to get up to speed with things. But when he did, and when he found his rhythm, particularly post World Cup, he was, for a small window there, our best player and arguably the best player or one of the best players in Scotland. His form was tremendous, and what he contributed through that section really helped propel us to that treble. So he might have come in as an unheralded signing, but his place in Celtic history is secured. He goes out a treble winner, and contributed significantly during the season for us to reach that milestone. Now, people like to go out on a high. Well, I think that's a pretty decent way to go out as a treble winner at Celtic. So, look, all the best to him. I'm sure he'll enjoy retirement. I don't think football punditry is on the cards for him. I think he might take a bit of a breather and just stay out of the limelight. But all the best, Aaron, and thanks for all the memories.
Yeah, I'll just jump in off the back of that, Shane, and echo a lot of what you're saying, particularly about the Socceroos, and in Australian football in general. Yeah, I didn't really. You all heard my story this time last year when we signed him and everything about, I thought he was a bit of a dick and everything. I didn't really rate his game, but the fact is he's come in, he did he basically made me eat my words. He did his job. And as you said, there was that period after the World Cup where he was probably the best player in the league. I'll give credit where it's due. Best way to go out. A treble winner, one and done, one season, wonder for us. And I'm going to bring up something that Andrew Galea is saying here. It's a bit sad. He's a bloody clever footballer. His best attribute of his game, it wasn't his speed. It wasn't his range of passing. It was his brain. And for me, he'll probably be doing the Mark Viduka, go off quietly into retirement. You don't hear much about it. Just sitting around somewhere, having a frothy, having a dart, and just putting his legs up and going, job well done. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on him. All the best to him in retirement. And, yeah, we'll throw to you, Paul, for your thoughts.
Yeah, so I probably fell a bit in the middle, obviously. I thought he was a good player. I thought maybe with the time in China, he was potentially at a bit of a wind down, and I thought he was going to be a good squad player. I thought he would fill a hole. He'd be good for rotation. I thought he might take some time off Calmac and play holding, and all of that was nonsense, right? There was a little bit of that experimentation at the beginning, and obviously he was one of many who didn't have a great game at St Mirren when we lost that first game of the season. But other than that, once he got up and running and he was just starting to play his way into form coming into the World Cup, as Shane touched on, he had a brilliant World Cup. And then, yeah, he just came straight out of the back flying, a bit like, I guess, Miera as well, when, he had a good World Cup with Japan and he did something similar. So, they hit the ground running, and you're right, he was unplayable for a period. And I certainly, he's definitely went above my expectations. And I would say a good chunk of the support, if not, 90 odd % of it, the rest are either Australian or liars, I would say. But yeah, he was flying. And yeah, you're right. His brain, brilliant. He, one of the slower players probably in the squad, but just 2 or 3 steps ahead of other players. His ability to read the game, to understand where a player's coming. He always looks like he's got time, even when he's got somebody breathing down his neck. His range of pass is excellent. He linked the play. He get a bit of dig, which in that team, we probably, one of the complaints down the last few years is we didn't really have too much dig, and he was willing to do a bit of that sort of dirty work as well, which, you need in a team. So yeah, brilliant signing for us. Sad to see him go as well. Yeah, only 32, but what a season for us. And to go out as a treble winner, Shane's right, he's absolutely secured his place as a bit of a cult hero. I can't think of too many other people that have worn the 13 shirt with distinction. So, he probably takes that honour as well.
Just with something you were saying there, Paul, before we throw to you, Willie, is you were saying like you thought he'd be a bench player or a squad player coming in. And that reminds me of something that we said this time last year as well, where saw him coming in with Rogic moving on, Bitton moving on. He was that guy who could cover both of their roles off the bench. So that versatility, yeah, I pretty much thought that, yeah, if he's coming in, he was going to be filling that role. So, yeah, he went above and beyond on all of that. But, yeah, it was a good signing, one good year. And over to you, Willie.
Yeah, it's sad news to see him go. I think he could have had another couple of seasons out of him playing around the squad quite easily. He was an unbelievable talent, seems to be cut short. He had that vision. His passing range was just phenomenal. As Paul says, he was 2 steps ahead of everyone in his head. Like, he had that ability to make space for himself. I mean, sometimes the way he would just shift his body and move a defender out of position so he could pick up the ball. He would have all the time in the world. He's like a golfer with the blades of grass, just dropping it to see which way the wind's going to get that perfect pass out. And sometimes some of the balls he would put in, like that goal, Jota got a header, he just flicked it in and it just landed right on Jota's head as he was running past the post, just in. We were all sort of sitting there thinking, how did he manage to get that in? But like you say, he came back from the World Cup absolutely flying. His game against Hibs, I think we beat Hibs 4-0 at Easter Road, and he just absolutely ran the show that day. Like, I was watching the Celtic put a video out, a wee thank you video. I was watching it, and my oldest daughter was sitting watching over my shoulder, so she went off, and so got a little picture there. So happy retirement to Mr. Mooy.
Hey, Willie, I love your homework.
yeah. That's actually a better attempt at the new Celtic top. I thought, never mind.
Come on, that thing will be a cult classic.
Yeah, it will be Monday.
Yep. All right. So we'll bring up some comments about Mooy here. So JJ saying, couldn't agree more. Pipe and slippers for Mooy, well deserved. Mickey Moynihan. Well said, Shane. Mooy did contribute to the treble. On another point, that pod they stated Mooy was the first ever Citigroup business. Sure was. First one from over here anyway. Patrick McLaughlin, glad Mooy's being appreciated. My prediction he'd be everyone's favourite player. Wasn't far off. And whose news? The only mistake was not getting Mooy in earlier. His first Glasgow Derby game, he was so calm and composed. So, yeah, it's be interesting to see what happens going forward. But I already think we've got his replacement in with Odin coming in. So we'll probably see what happens on that spot there. But I think our midfield has got enough depth to cover it all. But, yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later on probably in the pod. Now, another thing wanted to talk about on this pod. I couldn't find the video clips. I went looking, but it was like a needle in a haystack. I wanted to find the little shorts of every time in the last 12 months we said on this podcast, Shane, you or me had said, get Tilio into Celtic. I reckon there would be at least half a dozen. So at least is a minimum. So, yeah, good bit of signing for us. Get him in, 5-year deal, especially with certain somebody leaving the club. Let him and Abada battle it out for that wing spot, in my opinion. But, yeah, good signing for the club. Can play left, right, and as a 10, and as a false 9, but not as an actual out-and-out striker. Tilio's game, and I'm basically the way Liam was for Maeda before he come to the club. That's how I am with Tilio. What's your thoughts, Shane?
Oh, look, very excited. You know, when it was sort of first mooted and the possibility came up, I was very keen for Celtic to get him on board. I think Stephen mentioned this on the Tuesday Crew pod a few weeks ago, and he described Tilio as being someone that will get fans off their seats at Paradise. And I think that's a really good way to describe him. He's a really exciting prospect. He's still young, but what he loves to do, you know, when he plays here is he loves to get on the ball and he loves to take players on. He loves to get the ball and knock it past players, take them on, and you know, do that instead of necessarily just getting on the ball and passing and so forth. But the thing I wanted to really highlight, which I think, you know, a lot of people have talked about Tilio and what he brings, and I'm excited by that. But just to sort of emphasize, you know, that he's coming to Celtic and where we already have a lot of wingers. So he's been at the Melbourne City Football Club for a little while now, and Melbourne City's always really had a good set of attacking players, a good front third usually, and you know, the most recent season's no exception. They've got the likes of Jamie McLaren, Matthew Leckie, Andrew Naboot, all very recent or current Socceroos. And then, you know, in the attacking midfield strength, they've got people like Valon Berisha from overseas, who's a quality player. And over the course of the past few seasons, Tilio has come in and he sort of worked his way into being an important part of that first team. And so I just wanted to make that or highlight that, because he's going to come to Celtic where he's obviously not necessarily going to walk in. He's going to have to earn his spot, and he's used to that. He's gone through that at Melbourne City. He's used to having to fight for his spot. He's used to making the most of his opportunities. And I think that holds him in really good stead with the transition across to Celtic. But look, fans will come to love him very quickly. When they see him get on the ball and they see him take on a couple of players, knock it past them and create something, they're very quickly going to appreciate the quality that Tilio has. You know, and we're going to get him whilst he's got a long way to go. His ceiling's really high, and I'm excited for what he can actually deliver at Celtic. So yeah, looking forward to seeing him in the hoops at Paradise.
Paul, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I don't really watch as much of the A-League as you guys do, but obviously since the rumours started, I've sort of been brushing up a little bit on Tilio. I think the thing for me is, everything that's been said, obviously this is similar, but he just seems to have genuine pace. And you know, at any level that terrifies defenses. If we think back to Rodgers' first spell when he had Sinclair playing off the left. Now, I think Tilio will probably play more off the right from what I can gather. He likes to cut in on his left foot, and he's a bit two-footed, he's definitely stronger on the left.
Yep.
it allows him, and he definitely knows where the goal is, and he's got a decent ping. So, he'll as a winger in this team, he'll probably ask to get closer to the main striker. So, Kyogo, thankfully. And I'm sure we'll get into that in a bit as well. So yeah, I think exciting, pace, young, cheap, bit over £1 million, $2 million. Good business by Celtic. There's no real downside. It's not a huge outlay. If we are going to target players from the A-League, it has to be the absolute cream. And I think that's what he is. The A-League gets bashed up, as does the Scottish League. So, similar from that point of view. But if you're going to pick players out of either league, then you want to pick the cream of the young players and take them to a club and try and push them on. So, yeah, to me, there's no real downside risk. By all accounts, he's got a really good attitude. He obviously has got a high ceiling. As Shane says, he's sort of plugged away to get through the ranks, and he's not quite 22, and he's been around the top level, and he's got a few Socceroo caps as well. So he's, we think of some of our other young players who are 21, 22, and they've barely played a first team game. Never mind sort of international caps. He's a fair bit ahead of that. So yeah, quite excited to see where he goes from here.
Go on, Willie.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see him. I just hope he can replicate this form he's had at Melbourne and Celtic. I can't really add any more than what the guys are saying. It just seems to emphasise further our player trading model. Like Jota's not quite out the door, and Tilio's coming in at the same time. So we seem to be on the ball with the ins and outs. So good luck to the boy and welcome to Celtic.
It's definitely going to be a step up for him. I think that sort of goes without saying. It's going to be a step up, but you want players to step up. Otherwise, how do you sort of grow a player and lift a ceiling? So yeah, it's there's opportunity there, and he's not a like for like replacement for Jota by any stretch of the imagination. But it's good that we've done the business early, and he's got an upside. And I think at his age, then the model is bring him in cheaper, develop them, sell them on. He absolutely fits that model. So interesting.
We said last week on the Tuesday crew that he's definitely going to get game time. The way the game is now, you're going to make a couple of subs in the 60th minute. There's always going to be game time for wingers and players to add pace and directness into it. Like, so if Abada starts, Abada might come off early and he'll go on, vice versa. You know what I mean? So he will get game time, and there will be opportunities there for him to do it. So it's over to him. If he wants that opportunity, he needs to take it. So good luck to him, is what I say. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Some of his YouTube reels, I know you can't base players on YouTube reels, but some of the stuff you see on there, he's defenders sort of standing off and frightened to put the foot in just in case he goes past them and makes them look silly. So it is the kind of player that sort of fits the Celtic mould. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Right? See how he gets on.
I was just looking for a message I got from my older brother, who's a Melbourne City season ticket holder, and he goes, what he said to me was, it's not just his pace, like his top speed, but he's got that explosive 3 or 4 steps. It'll just get past people, and then he'll just maintain a speed or whatever. So he's got 2 different types of pace about him. But then he goes, also his hard cutting balls from when he gets the ball deep. If he gets back defensively and then looks to come forward, he does have a good range of passing in him too, which is just powerful and pinpoint. So he goes, those would be some good things for him, as well as all the, the tricks and all the scoring and all that he likes to do, and the cutting in on his left foot. He's got a few other things there as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Got a few comments on him here. So Patrick is saying, do you guys think Tilio is a starter straight away, or is he going to have to bide his time? As Shane said earlier, he'll come in, but I don't think he'll be a starter straight away. But then he's what do we got here? So as Shane said here, 3. Andrew's commenting on Shane saying 3 is a senior football, improving all the time. Andrew saying lots of good young players coming through, and that Celtic is a step up, but the SPFL won't be a step up for him, which I kind of agree with. So for me, I'm looking at it going, he's going to be a good signing for us. Give him a couple of months to settle in, but wouldn't surprise me if he just comes on and just plays well in one game and we're off to the races with him. So it'll be he's a good one for us, and looking forward to it, having him in the hoops. One little fact for you though, he is a successful little player, this Tilio, 3 senior years. How many times in a row, Shane, has he won the premiership, not the actual toilet seat, so the grand final, but the premiership at his club in his senior career? Let's see if you know.
It's either 4 or 5.
It's 4. He's been in the senior team at Sydney for 1 year, and they won the premiership plate. And then at Melbourne City, 3 straight years, they won the premiership plate with him there. So basically, the premiership plate is the equivalent of winning the league. So at the end of the season, highest point scoring for the guys in Scotland where we don't have the finals or whatever. It's like being on top there at the point of the split, basically. So yeah, it's basically the equivalent of having won 4 straight titles in Australia. The way the league's done over in Scotland. So he's not just a good player, but he's coming from winning culture. So
And he's embedded himself in that team. That just to pick up on that with the point I was saying before, he's slowly grown each year at City. He's gone from being someone just sort of in and around the fringes to coming off the bench as an impact player to this most recent season where he's started pretty much every game. And during that time, they've had quality players, and as you've highlighted, have been winning the league, and he's been able to grow and then become a part of that first team during that successful run. It speaks volumes for his work rate and his quality as well.
Yep. So I agree with you on that, and I think we've pretty much covered everything for Tilio. Just the only thing is, when's he going to get to Glasgow? Because he's got a bit of stuff to sort out apparently. So yeah, once he's over there and announced, and everything will be good to see him over there. So who was our last number 23 before him? Was it Bolingoli?
Yeah, I think so. It was either Bolingoli or Lustig, wasn't it?
Bolly was after Lustig, yeah. So Bolingoli.
Yep.
There we go. Handy. So next topic is Adam Montgomery. I thought he was going to be a chance to break into the squad this season as like a backup to Taylor, because I think Burner Bay, if he's going to have a future at the club, will be pushing further forward under Rodgers as a left winger. But Monty's departing on a season-long loan to play under Bruni at Fleetwood Town. Anyone got any thoughts on that move? Start with you, Paul.
Yeah, so I did hear you suggest that he might be in the squad a few weeks ago on the Pot Noodle, and I did think probably not. So I disagreed with you on that one. But so look, for me, it's not a surprise that he's gone out on loan again. I did check his stats. He's only about 20, 21, not quite 21. So I guess to my point earlier, he's still probably a year younger than Tilio. But, you know, if you compare him in terms of his game time and his development, he's not at that same level, right? So he hasn't played a lot of football. I think he played 27 games for St Johnstone last year. I don't know how many of them were full 90 minutes. He only had, I think, 4 or 5 appearances for us, and I think maybe 7 at Aberdeen when he was out on loan there for 6 months. So he hasn't played a lot of top level football. He needs games at his age if he is going to push on. He's obviously a talent. We gave him that contract to extend to 2025. So I think this is a bit of a make or break season for him, and think sending him down to Fleetwood with Bruni's a pretty good option. Hopefully there's, obviously can't guarantee anyone a game, but hopefully Bruni's taking him with a view to playing him regularly and him becoming his first pick, presumably at left back, if that's his new position. And then, see how he does. It's competitive down there. It's the making of, to some degree of Callum McGregor when he went to Notts County and came through and came back. He went as a boy and came back more as a man. And we've heard that a bit about Cal's time down there. So hopefully Monty can do something similar. Remains to be seen. But I think from a club point of view, it's a good idea, and it's good for the player to get games. So, at the very least, I think if he doesn't, it probably make it clear whether he's got the ability to come back and push for a spot with us, or whether he isn't going to make it at this level, in which case he'll move on and he'll have a good career somewhere else, I'm sure.
Just on that, going down to Bruni, I hope he gets on the good diet of chicken and rice down there, like the Ryan Christie Aberdeen move, and he comes back like not just toughened up from getting kicked up and down the pitch, but also come back looking like a bit of a beast. Shane, Willie, got anything to add?
I'll step in. Look, I agree with what Paul says. He needs to be playing. He needs to be getting game time. If he's not going to be sort of breaking into the first team, just sort of hanging around the fringes, it's good that he goes somewhere where he can actually get get matches under his belt. But I think it's also important because he's obviously had a couple of loans in the Premiership that he kind of gets out of that bubble and goes somewhere else as well. So he gets the ability to go down south to still a relatively competitive league, but he's under someone who's obviously, Celtic minded in Bruni. And I think he would have been there when Adam was there initially, unless I'm mistaken. So there's obviously a little bit of a connection there. I think it's good that he gets out of that bubble and gets game time, but somewhere a little bit different. And as you said, Jared, if it helps harden him up and then he comes back all bulked up, I guess, Ryan Christie-esque, we might be all the better for it.
And Willie, we'll let you finish the topic off.
Yeah, there's not much more you can add to that than what the boys have already said. Like, he needs game time. He's had a shot in Scotland. It's time to try him out in a different league, different kind of opposition, see how he adapts to that, see how it goes. And he's got a good leader there in Bruni. You're going to get a good education with him. So, yeah, good luck to him. Hope it works.
At least Bruni knows the level he's trying to train and be ready to go and compete at. So that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, comment section. Go easy, okay? Before we get into this, I just want to put a disclaimer here. Let's leave any, Judas comments or any sort of that sort of, vitriol directed at Jota. When we start talking about that, let's not put that in the comments. Let's just talk about him as an actual player for winning 5 trophies for us like he did in the last 2 years, because I'm disappointed Jota's left us for Al-Ittihad in Saudi Arabia. Would have loved him to stay and see him play under Brendan. But, £25 million incoming, plus the 30% sell on, however that breaks down, if it's before, if it's on the whole figure or just on the profit. If he's on 192K a week or 200K a week like people are talking about, I just want to go around. We'll go around the room here first. And just, first of all, we'll just discuss how you feel about him, about Jota leaving me. As I just said, would have loved to have seen him under Brendan. I'm a little disappointed, but, it is what it is. So we'll go to you first, Paul. What's your thoughts? How do you feel about Jota leaving?
Yeah, it hurts, obviously, but I'll be honest. Look at the last 4 weeks. It's only 4.5 weeks ago we won the cup final. We've been on a roller coaster since then. So you're kind of getting used to this by now. Look, I'm along. I tweeted this week that once you've watched the King of Kings go, everything else is pretty manageable, right? So it's about perspective for me. We got 2 amazing years out of him. We got, he played to the crowd. We lapped it up. But he produced on the park, and he, we talked about a little bit about Tilio being a player that might get bums off seats. He was absolutely a player that got bums off seats. Some special memories. Obviously, goes away a winner. He leaves us with a massive pile of cash. I'll be honest. I'm a bit uncomfortable politically about where that cash is coming from in that regime in general. But without dwelling on that, he can't. It's not for the player. He could get injured next week in training, and his career's gone. Look at John Kennedy. We've seen it really close to home. He's going to be making 10 million quid tax free per year. You're not telling me any one of us gets the opportunity to 10 times our salary tax free for a year or two and put ourselves and our family in a different stratosphere for the rest of our lives, and probably it's intergenerational, right? His kids aren't going to have to worry about anything either. So it's one of those. It's a bit of a game changer. I didn't necessarily expect that league to be operating at that kind of level. So it's gonna without going too far off topic, this is a sort of much bigger debate for another discussion probably, but it's gonna really change the landscape massively across European football, because it started off they were taking players as a bit of a retirement home, and now they're picking off talent from clubs like ourselves. It's sort of nobody's safe, right? So I made my peace with it. The cash helps. The memories were great. We move on. Let's hope that the cash is spent well and we stick to the plan, because I've been banging on about this for a few weeks on the Monday show, and I'm sure you guys have sort of touched on it over time, is if we want to level up and actually do something in Europe, We need to move towards a model like Ajax, Benfica, Porto, these teams that are producing talent and are picking off talent and, you know, buying it cheap and selling it more expensively and incrementally moving up to the point. So if we sell him for 25, 30 mil, as the rumor might be, the next one should be going for over 30, and then so on and so forth. You know, Ajax sold Anthony to Man United for 80 million. Now that's a bit off for us, but that should be the goal, right? That should be, we level up, we take these salary, these fees, and we level up the squad in terms of wages and then fees, and incrementally over years. If we get the model right and we continue to do this well, then we will be operating at that kind of level. And so from that point of view, I can't sit here and say that's how I want the club to operate and then be too despondent when we get a player and do exactly that with them. So yeah, it sort of makes sense to me.
That's the production line we've spoken about plenty of times, Paul, where we say, like, you look at like your Leipzigs and your Salzburgs and those sort of clubs, along with Ajax and Porto and that, where they have like that player who, okay, they'll spend more than us, but they're spending maybe 15 million. So they sell a guy for 30, they'll spend 15 on his replacement, and then they'll spend 5 million on the replacement's replacement. So then once that next guy goes for the 30 to 40, they've got a guy ready to step up, and then they go and spend 5 on the backup to train them through. That's the sort of thing I'd love to see us get to. And when you look at what you're talking about, yes, it's all about the whole moving forward and turning and churning, basically. Perfect example of that would be our right back situation with Juranovic moving on, Johnson coming in, and it feels like we leveled up at that position. So we just need to do the same in our squad with Jota. But throw to you, Shane, for your thoughts.
Yeah, similar to both yourself, Jared, and Paul. Look, I'm disappointed that he won't be around under this season under Rodgers. I think we've got an incredible sort of 2 years out of him. Particularly this last season, I think he went to a different level in terms of the way that he at times almost threw the team on his back and said, right, I'm going to carry us to these 3 points. I'm going to do what it takes to get us over the line here, which had developed from his first season. But the simple fact is that, you know, if you do well in Scotland and if you do well at Celtic, you know, clubs with money or dollary dues or dollary bucks or dollar bucks, as they say on Bluey, those with bank accounts that can sustain it will, Jared's not happy with the Bluey reference, those who can afford it will come calling. And, you know, similar to Paul, there is a level of uncomfortableness in terms of where he's gone and the whole Saudi regime and so forth. But speaking very generally, not just including Saudi, but when we've got a player that we, you know, have, or a valuable asset that someone wants to buy, we need to make sure that we are getting proper remuneration, you know, and that we are maximizing that player's value. And we've done so here, in my opinion. You know, we bought him for what, 6.5, I think, and now we've sold him for roughly, you know, 25 to 30. So we've done well there over the course of a season. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this money gets invested and seeing what we do with it. And yeah, look, hopefully we can find the next Jota or someone like that, and when the time comes, do the same again if need be.
Willie?
Yeah, I mean, good luck to Jota. Thanks for the memories, but it's all part of this player trading model. We have to be part of that system. We can't just say, right, we're going to keep our best players until they run out of contract and then lose money on them. We've seen the club across the city do the same. They've had some of their top players just walk away for free. That can't happen at a club with the sort of size and stature of Celtic anymore. If you want to put it into perspective, Jota is about to earn double what Celtic as a club got for winning the treble in prize money from the Scottish League and the Scottish League Cup and the Scottish Cup. It's an insane amount of money. Like, you know what I mean? He's never going to turn that down. We're going to add another possibly 15 million to our transfer kitty. So it's a win-win situation for both. He's going to be rich. We're getting money. So good luck, Jota.
The only concern I have with us having everyone knowing how much money is coming our way from this is suddenly the tax on top of any potential person you want to buy goes up. So if you're going to buy someone for 5 million, now they know you've got money. They're going to ask for 8 to 10. So suddenly you get that sort of issues there. But I'll bring up a couple of comments here. Robert Gibson, Rogers wanted rid of Jota as he has a real tan. Like us, Jota left because the new home kit looks too much like a Sporting Lisbon kit. So yeah, we had to. I'll look at it and go, yeah, he's moving on. All the best. Thanks for everything. And we get into our good news, which, as Paul was saying, like ever since we won the treble, it's kind of been like a what's the bad news this week sort of thing. And so this week, what did we do? We lost Jota, and Jacina's moving on. And but on a positive, Kyogo signs for a new 4-year deal and new 4-year contract. And considering there are rumours of him leaving the club in the weeks since Ange left, I think that's it's great news for us. And we'll just quickly go around and have a pile on like a love session here about how much we all love Kyogo and his celebration. So Willie, go to you first.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic news to hear Kyogo signed a new 4-year deal. I mean, it's a real statement of intent from the club too. We're not going to sit back and let players be poached away. He's got another 4 years on his deal, so if anyone's going to come looking, then the price is going to go up as well. I mean, a player of his quality only enhances the league too. So I'm absolutely over the moon to see him stay for another 4 years. He's a hand scalper, 5 goals in 6 games against him last season. So more than happy for him to stick around for as long as he wants.
And Shane?
Yeah, I agree with Will. It's very exciting and a good statement of intent from the club. Also, there was a little bit of, maybe a little bit of concern that with Rogers coming back in, that what this might mean for a couple of the players, particularly those who'd come from Japan, and whether we look to the Japanese markets and other markets like that going forward. So I think on that basis, it's also a statement of intent that, Kyogo wants to stay at Celtic and play under Rogers as well. So, look, really exciting, and I'm looking forward to another 4 more years of seeing him celebrate goals in his really unique and very heartwarming way.
Paul?
Oh, look, it's a great bit of business, and look, if you want to simplify it, Jota goes, we get him signed for another 4 years, then I can live with that plus the extra cash. So one of the things I've sort of banged on about is, yeah, we can sell players for big bits of cash, but it's simplistically out in the fan base that goes, oh, well, we've got that amount to spend. Well, you have, but you cut it differently. So as I said in that last point, you're going to balance that out between wages on existing players, new players, and actual fees. So you might not see the fees at the same kind of level as we've actually received in, but if it levels up the squad overall, I think it's great. Kyogo's been absolutely immense for us over the last 2 years. And that level of threat, goals, look at his touch to goal ratio, his involvement to goal ratio is incredible. If we all watch games, and the whole fan base probably watches games and sees him make run after run after run. And how often do we, the guys on the ball not see that run? Quite often they do pick it out, and more often than not, when they do, it's in the back of the net. If we can find a 10 that starts to see him with a greater regularity, he just goes that. We all go to a completely different level, and that's probably where we level up in the Champions League. So yeah, really exciting. On the one side, he's nearly 29, so realistically, possibly his last big contract if he stays. At the very least, we've protected our assets. So if he has a phenomenal season in the Champions League and somebody comes and offers, silly money next season, and when we'll have people going, he signed a 4-year contract and he's gone and won. Well, so what? We've protected ourselves, right? So in an ideal world, he stays. But if he goes, then we're going to get big fee for him. So yeah, no downside again. Really happy with the business. He's a great player and a great bloke and brilliant for the squad and the fan base. So, all positive and probably a bit of positivity that we needed in a real boost to the point where, and yeah, I saw somebody say the club have played a blinder with how they've announced it. we're still on a bit of a minor, a bit of a downer from Jota going, and we just get that immediate lift back up, knowing that Kyogo signed a new deal. So hopefully we'll get another few signings in the door in the next week or two to just boost it up again, so that they're in and on board before the squad heads off to Japan. But yeah, I'm delighted with that bit of business, and yeah, it gives a bit of stability and a really crucial part of the team as well.
Well, something you're saying there, Paul, brings me to something I wanted to bring up, which ties into our next topic. But you're saying we got him on a 4-year deal. If Kyogo goes after next year, then people are saying, "Oh, we signed him on a 4-year deal and we protected ourselves." But you got to look at it. Something Willie mentioned earlier as well about the player trading model. The average lifespan in the player trading model at the club is probably 2-3 seasons. So if he goes at this time next year, for instance, then that fits right in with it. If he doesn't, that ties into my next topic that I wanted to ask you about was, well, we've had some great strikers at the club since the King left the building. So I wanted to get you guys to figure out along with us in the comments as well, where does Kyogo currently rank, in your opinion, for the strikers who we've had after Henrik Larsson left the club? Does that make sense? So does he beat the likes of Musa, Edouard, Bellamy, Keane, Hooper, Griffiths, and so on? Where would you put him in all of those? So we'll go to you first, Willie.
I rate him as the best since Henrik Larsson, without a doubt. I mean, he scores, was it 1.05 goals per 90 minutes? He's got a 34.25 conversion rate, 2.9 shots per goal. It's 56% shot accuracy. And you look at Haaland at 33.96 for his conversion rate and 55.6 for his shot accuracy. He's up there, you know what I mean? He's the perpetual motion you get from him is just constant. Everyone knows he's going to be between the goals. He's going to be in that area between the goals. But defenders lose him the whole time because he's constantly moving left, right. Just a joy to watch. I really do rate him, and that's why I would put him above Moussa Dembele and Edouard. So yeah.
What do you think, Shane?
Well, Willie came prepared with the stats, and he's probably swayed me a bit now. I probably had him on level pegging with Dembele, but after hearing that, I think I've got to edge him just slightly higher than Dembele based on that. Look, I think he's definitely around that mark. I think I probably have him still on par with Dembele, but I think over the course of the next season alone, I think he'll definitely go above that. And yeah, I agree with Willie that he will be the second or the best after Larsson, of course.
I actually think he's in for a big season this season. I think the way Rodgers likes his strikers to play is exactly where Kyogo wants to play. So I know he's not 6'5" or a big burly player, but I just think Kyogo's game is exactly what Rodgers will want for a player. So I'm really looking forward to see what happens this season.
Not many of us are 6'5", mate. It's okay.
Oh, that's true.
On that point, though, Willie, like what you're saying, I agree with you because I think you'll suit Rodgers' system because the pressing game, the amount of work that Kyogo was doing pressing, Rodgers' teams don't press that hard. Yeah. They tend to get the ball, hold it, pass it around, maintain possession. So if Kyogo's not having to expend all that energy pressing, he's going to be able to make his runs and counter runs and secondary runs. And if we get a good number 10, like was said earlier in the pod, and we can find him, then it's going to open him up make him even more dangerous in attack.
Yeah.
But over to you, Paul.
Yeah, look, there's a case for Dembele for sure. I don't think the others we've touched. Look, Edouard was brilliant as well, but I don't know. There's something about Dembele that he just has this bit of a cult sort of aspect to him. I think obviously the way he went about his business against the Huns, because he's more physical. That left-right header hat trick is just the kind of complete striker. But Willie's right. Kyogo's movement is incredible. To be honest, I'm not going to compare any player to Larsson. It's sacrilegious as a Celtic fan. But he one of my favorite things about Larsson, especially when I back in the day when I was in the ground and lucky enough to have a season ticket and stuff, there was days when I was just watching Larsson's movement. I wasn't watching the rest of the game. I was just watching Larsson's movement because in the ground, and we've all watched this at different levels, but in the ground, you see a completely different game to, the TV highlights, because the TV highlights focus on roughly where the ball is. And if you might get some of the movement, and we see that a bit with Kyogo, we see movement and we see runs and go that, the player on the ball didn't. For me, I think, the stats alone, if you look at it just on stats in terms of what he delivers, he's already there. I think Shane's right. This will be a big season for him. And I saw a couple of comments saying he hasn't done it in the Champions League yet. He's only had one tilt. And I don't know if probably Dembele might have had one or two. And maybe the job is a little bit more favourable back then. So I think this is a season to judge him on. And I expect him to go into another level. So yeah, he's probably on the, he's on the cusp, if not already there, probably already there. But certainly I expect him to go past Dembele and be standing alone as the best striker since Larsson during this season.
Yep, couldn't agree with you anymore there. For me, with Edouard, there's not going to deny it. It's on pod somewhere. I thought he was probably the best striker I had seen since Larsson, until that last season happened for the 10-0 season, the way that all fell apart and he didn't get his move and then he went to sulk and all that sort of stuff. So I actually thought he was the best striker I had seen. I even bought a top with Edouard 22 on the back. Like, that's how highly I rated the guy. And I've only ever bought a player's name and number on the back of two tops in my life, Bruni and him. So that says it all. But Dembele, loved his game. I thought he did it on the pitch and he did it on social media. And that's why we all loved him so much. But Kyogo's gone past both of them for me. So absolutely happy as that he's still here. But if Kyogo does stay for his full 4 years, so he's at the club total of 6 years, how close, I know this is like, where's my crystal ball? How close, if he keeps up his current rate of play, do you think he will come to the overall impact at the club compared to what Henrik did in his 7 years at the club? Go to you, Willie.
That's quite a difficult question to answer, because without putting Kyogo down, I don't think he'll get as close as to Larsson. I don't think anyone will get as close to Larsson as what Larsson is. Larsson is a living legend. He's a god, basically. It's close to perfection as you'll get. Kyogo's a fantastic player, but Henrik Larsson he was on that next level to Kyogo. So he'll be stand out as second in the strikers that I will have seen in my lifetime, but I don't think he'll get Larsson, I'm afraid.
Have to agree with you on that, Willie. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I think the thing about Larsson is we got his absolute prime years, didn't we? So we got Kyogo kind of as he says, he's hitting his peak, and if we keep him through that contract, we'll get a good chunk of his best years as well. But Larsson, I don't know what age he was when he left, but we must have, at 7 seasons, we must have had him from early to mid-20s right through to about 30-ish. So it's one of those, we always want to compare players from eras and teams and all of that sort of stuff. I think, we want to enjoy these players while we've got them. I think it's hard to say that, anyone's going to, the way Larsson was held up and what he delivered and the time he played and how he also was part of that starting point of building the sort of generation of domination that we've all enjoyed. So there's that sort of that, I guess, backdrop of a lack of success to then a huge amount of success. So there's all of that sort of, that sits with him. But yeah, his sheer numbers, what is he, third top goal scorer in our history or something like that?
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if anyone gets near that. And yeah, look, Kyogo's, I don't know, something just special about Larsson. But if Kyogo, the fact we're even talking about him in the same sort of context and breadth shows the amount of impact he's had in 2 seasons. So long may it continue, and if he can push on from here, it'd be, we'll all be enjoying that, and it'll be to Celtic's best interest as well.
And Shane, anything to add?
No, I think you boys have covered it all off really well. I don't want to say anything that's going to put Kyogo down. He's an incredible player. I think he's probably even has the potential to get better. I think we're gonna, if he stays for the 4 years, he's going to leave a remarkable legacy. But look, I don't think it will. I don't think it'll get near what Larson did.
And that's because Liam's not here, so I thought I'd do it for fun. All right, yep. So let's talk about possible transfers that are, incoming to the club. So quick little whip around here. What positions do you think we need to strengthen? Willie, you say 1, Shane 1, Paul 1, and we'll just go around. I think there's only 4 positions we probably need to fix. So what do you reckon, Willie? What's the priority for you?
Goalkeeper.
Shane?
Number 10.
Paul?
I'm with Shane. I think we need O'Reilly's amazing, but I think we need an absolute out and out Champions League number 10. Like a player, to my point, a player that can see more of those Kyogo runs and therefore delivers huge amount of assists and will score more goals, and therefore we'll win more games and we'll be in the mix in the Champions League.
For me, it's a tough one. It's 1 minute I think we need a European quality number 6, but then at the same time I think we need a European quality centre back to play alongside Carter Vickers in the Champions League. So that's one of those two for me. Like the number 10, agree with you. Goalkeeper, agree with you. But for me, it's one of those two. So if that's the case, that's what we all think we need to bring in. Here's a list of players we've been linked with this week. So Fabian Ryder from BSC Young Boys, apparently a central attacking midfielder who can also play on one of the wings for about £15 million. There's your European quality number 10. Would breaking our can you see the club breaking our transfer record for 21-year-old central attacking midfielder? Shane, would you be happy with that?
Yes, I would. And I think if I'm looking at a position or positions where I'd like to splash some cash to get a quality player, I'm either thinking centre half or a quality number 10. So if they were to spend that money on bringing Fabian Ryder in, I'd be fine with that.
Paul, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I agree with Shane. It's one that's just kind of sort of creeped up on the radar in the last week or so. But and obviously, careful what you look at in terms of YouTube. But he just looks like his range of passing is brilliant. It just gets me excited. Back to the thing about picking out Kyogo's running. He looks like a guy who can do that. Good feet, good range of passing. Who knows? But he looks like exactly the kind of profile that you would go and spend that kind of money on. If we can, there'll be loads of teams looking at him in Europe. But he'll start. We're starting to develop a platform for getting players into either the Premier League or now Saudi and life-changing money. So it depends which way you want to go as a player. But we've covered both those bases. I tweeted this week that he's the kind of player that if we did get him, we'd all fall in love with him. He'd break our hearts in 12 months. He'll be off somewhere else. That's the kind of trajectory he looks like he could be on. But look, I get back to the model. If you buy him at 15 and he does what we think he could possibly do, he does sell for more than Jota. He's 30 or 35 or even 40 mil because your starting price is higher. The ability level's higher. Then he goes
a long-term contract.
Yeah, he gets a long-term contract and he's 21 years of age. So, I think even if we don't get him, and I think I'm already getting my hopes up that we do, and I'm sure there's plenty others in the support, but the fact we're looking at play, because I think there's genuine interest, right? It sounds like this isn't just pie in the sky. It sounds like this is genuine interest. There's enough kind of corroboration around that we're interested in this player. So for me, it sends a message that we're shopping in the right kind of markets, if that's what we're trying. So all positive for me. If we don't get him, hopefully there's a list. You'd expect there to be a list. But yeah, I agree with Shane. We want to be spending that kind of cash on 1 or 2 players with the budget that we've got available this summer, and then a few others in the 4 to 6 million category probably. And we're probably going to see our wage bracket widen out a little bit. I think the wage bracket's probably been relatively tight for the first 15, 16 players on the squad. I think we'll start to see that widen. Now, does that cause problems in terms of, how people are feeling? If it's managed correctly and they're working towards career development and all the rest of it, and we are like most think, stepping stone to richer leagues, then that should be fine. And I think it's all part of this model that will take us to another level.
And Willie.
I think Paul's read my notes on that one. I've got down, he just fits the player trading model. Like, he's just exactly what you need. He's 21. He's got the ability to go to the next level. He'll use this as a stepping stone 1 or 2 years and he'll move on. And as Paul said, I've gone onto YouTube and watched a couple of highlight reels of him, and he has really good close control. He's got nice touch, and his vision for the passing. In my notes here, I think Kyogo would thrive off the kind of balls he would be able to play into him. So I too am also very excited to see if this boy will come or not, and I really do hope he does.
So we've got a comment here from Pete McGee. Can't play with a 10 unless the formation is 4-4-2, and it's not going to happen. So a 3-5-2 would have a number 10. A 4-2-3-1 would have a number 10. A 4-4-2, you'd need to have a diamond midfield to do that. So there's plenty of options there. A 4-3-3, you can even have a number 10. So there's plenty of options. It would work. It's a good signing. So for me,
I think we'll go back to his default. For majority of games, we'll go back to the 4-2-3-1. I think, which absolutely perfect for a 10. So,
yep,
I think
100%.
I think that's likely.
We all saw how Rogic played under Rodgers as a 10 last time around. So that's the position. That's the role that you're looking for him to come in. So, yeah. The next player we're linked with was Duck from Aberdeen for about £2 million as a third-string striker. Willie, we'll go to you first. What do you reckon?
He's shown he's more than capable of doing the business in Scotland. He's young. He's only 23. He would also fit the player trading model. He's got 16 goals, 37 games. He's got quite a good conversion rate of 35%, 2.8 shots per goal, 62% shot accuracy. He's agile. He's speedy. He's got good strength. Might be worth a punt for $2 million. He could certainly do a job as backup to Kyogo, but I don't know. Are you going to hamper O's progress by taking him on? Quite the possibility of that could happen, but it is an area we probably will need to strengthen in, and you could do a lot worse than him, but they might want to do a bit better too, though.
The rumours floating around Carlos Borges, Man City's youngster, as well, coming in for that role, if my memory's right. So that'll be an interesting one. Paul, Shane, you got anything you want to add about Duck potentially, or is he a no for you?
Look, he had a pretty decent season at Aberdeen, and they finished like a steam train. But for a long time there, they were pretty poorly performing, particularly early on in that season. And for him to sort of do well in that squad at that time, I think there's a player there. And also, it is good to look at our, obviously, our local league and see if we can actually bring any players in from other clubs from within Scotland as well. So he fits that bill. I think 2 mil's okay. I'm not really fussed either way, but yeah, look, I wouldn't be too unhappy if it happened.
Anything to add, Paul?
I take what the guys are saying, but I think to me he would be a direct competition for O as a second string. And I think we need a third striker, but I'd rather he was somebody that was putting proper pressure on Kyogo and then always having to lift his game. So as somebody that sits between the two, and that might be somebody that's a bit older. It might be somebody that's sort of coming to the end of a contract and is happy to take a short-term contract and use some nous and just be a bit of a rotation in a super sub. I don't know. He could be, it could be there. There's a place for players. He's, is he going to be happy competing for the bench spot for a striker? That's the question, right? So I think there'll be other clubs interested in him that will be more likely. There'll be a step up from Aberdeen in terms of, club and wages, and probably, closer to being able to guarantee him first team football. So I'm not sure it's going to happen. If it does, and it's not the most expensive thing, then he's probably good for the squad. But it's not one that gets me super excited either way.
Andrew Galea in the comments has read my mind. Made is our third striker. I think he would suit playing as a striker more under Rodgers than as a winger under Rodgers, because Rodgers tends to like those tricky technical wingers. So I think Maeda would be more the third striker. You could even have a pairing of him and Kyogo together if we play a 3-5-2, for instance, with two up the front. The speed and those two talking in Japanese and no one knowing what they're saying to each other will make it even harder for the defenses. So that could always work. So I'd skip that one. A couple more ones we're talking about is there's a potential for Kieran Tierney on loan from Arsenal, 10 million, loan with the option to buy. Would you? I think wages would scupper that deal. He's on about 120 grand a week. No chance in hell that's happening unless Arsenal's going to subsidise his wages. But we can dream, but, I'm not delusional.
Doesn't fit the model, right? Doesn't like it. I don't know how it's got in there, but it doesn't really fit the model in any way, shape, or form. I don't really want to be loaning players from other clubs. The option to buy, I think you're right, Jared. The way in another, was he 26, coming up 27, maybe in another 3 or 4 years, you might see him be willing to take a pay cut and come back and give us his last 2 or 3 best years if he's still fit. And we haven't moved on past that. But for me, trying to get an equivalent of an AJ on the left-hand side is more the model. It's a 23, 24-year-old, 2 or 3 million quid, hungry, develop him, go from there. So for me, as much as I loved KT last time, and he's a great player, and I think he's had a bit of a raw deal at Arsenal, that's no for me.
Just don't see it happening. He's a quality player, and I absolutely would take him back. And I know he doesn't necessarily fit the model, as Paul said, but for that quality, I definitely have him back in the heartbeat. I just don't see it happening, even irrespective of the wages. If Newcastle's in for him, like I see him going there instead of actually coming back to us. So yeah, would love it, but I just don't think it's on the cards realistically.
Before you say anything, I'm going to answer this comment from Sam. How's Josh Deutsch doing in Italy? Apparently, he's done that well at Hellas Verona that he's getting a move to Bologna. So
I read today the Bologna moves off, but somebody else in Italy is going to pick him up. So it escapes me who it is. But I read earlier today that Bologna are looking like dropping out because somebody else in Serie A is sort of gazumped them to that. But I can't remember who it is. But I was reading that earlier.
Back to you,
Yeah, KT, I think we said it last week. I can't see it happening. I think it would just cause too much ructions, the amount of money he would look to be on with the rest of the squad. There's the whole levelling up with the player trading model, but that's going one level too far, one or two levels too far for us. So it's too big a reach, and it's a no from me. And much as I would love to have him back, cracking player and all that, but it's just, it doesn't make sense to me.
And the last one we're going to talk about quickly, Scott McTominay from Man United. The rumoured range is 11 to about £14 million for him on a permanent, or we just loan him for a year. I was talking about a European level number 6. That's him. If we're going to sign him, if we're going to spend all our transfer kitty and sign Ryder and McTominay, I'd still get another centre back in, and look at some other positions. But we'd probably then, at that point, once those two are in, we'd have to sell to buy. So, McTominay, I think it'd be a decent move, and I think you tick the box of what I'm after. But at the same time, I think his issue would be it'd upset the wage structure too much if Kalmack, who plays the same position for him as the club captain, and he's getting out earned almost double the wages of what McTominay would want compared to what Kalmack's on. Some people have
agreed.
Yep. Paul, anything?
I think, like Katie, I think wages are going to be the issue. But if somehow they weren't, and he could fit in even an upscaled model without upsetting the apple cart across the top earners, especially like Kalmack, obviously, I believe he's playing next to him, especially if we're playing a 4-2-3-1. He's a great player. He's, there was a lot of doubters about him when he's been mentioned a few times over the last 12 months. It seems like there's more traction on it this time than there has been in previous months and years. But I don't know. His performances for Scotland have sort of turned a few Celtic fans round. I think a lot of people were like, he's not that great and he'd be too expensive. But yeah, I don't think it's realistic. But if somehow the club pulls that one off and manages to make it work, it would be a bit of a statement signing. But realistically, I don't think it's going to happen. I'm happy to eat my words if it does, put it that way.
100%. So I'm just going through some comments here. Pete McGee. God's sake, now it's McTominay. We need to get real. Sean here saying Man United want 30 mil for him. Apparently Newcastle's offered 30 million for him. And then Pete here, why not see if Haaland fancies a move from City? Mate, we're not making up these rumours. Okay, we're going off what people are talking about on Twitter, Facebook, in the what's it called? In the papers, all that sort of stuff. I don't think we'll get him. I think Ryder maybe, McTominay no. Personally, that's my opinion. But if Haaland does fancy a move from City, well, at least he'll be joining a big club
with a decent fan base. Like.
Fan base. So he'll be coming to a real club. So there you go. There's your selling point.
He'll get an atmosphere on a Saturday too, rather than sitting in a library. Like
exactly.
Yeah. There goes our good links to the City group.
Aye.
Oh well, we got Tilio now. I'm good.
Burn the bridge.
All right. Last topic. The Korea tour is part of the tour is off. The Japan tour is still going ahead. So I saw something in the Tasmanian CSC Facebook group, and I thought, why not bring it up for a chuckle? Give them a shout out too, because they're a good bunch. If you're on Facebook, join their group, especially if you're in Tassie. But what they're saying is they're saying that Celtic should swing down this way down to Australia again once they are done in Japan for a couple extra friendlies against A-League teams. Is this a good idea? What do you think, Paul?
Well, we're obviously going to think it's a good idea because we might get to see them again, right? So, look, I've seen the press have already jumped in it saying our pre-season's in chaos. The Korea tour is canned. Well, it was one match, right? So, in the grand scheme of things, we were doing that as, much more for marketing purposes than we were for match sharpness or development or any other bits and pieces. It's about brand development. Let's be honest. We've signed we've had some Korean players in the past. It's a market we'll continue to tap. Obviously, there's a link with another winger that's on some of the comments saying it's potentially nearly a done deal. He's forcing that through. But either way, it's definitely a market we want to try and explore. So it's a marketing deal. And the Japan side of things is that too, and a bit of a thank you to the players as well. So for me, does it make sense to then, the players have barely had a break. Does it make sense from a practical point of view that to be basically give them a world tour after their 2-week holiday? Probably not. Like, it'd be great to see them down here. And I would like to see Celtic circle back through Australia on a more consistent basis than we've seen in the past. But from a practical point of view, either find another team in Japan to play or just play the 2 games and get back and play some games in Europe as we run into the season. So, yeah, that's my view.
Shane?
Would love it. Would love them to swing by, and it makes perfect sense that they're in that part of the world. The only thing is, we've obviously got the Women's World Cup going on very shortly. I can't remember, when was the Korea and Japan tour scheduled for? It's pretty recent. It's pretty soon, isn't it?
Yeah, about 21st to 26th or something like that.
So we're still going to be relatively either just towards the tail end of the Women's World Cup or just after it, when they're obviously starting to get the stadiums kind of back to where they were. So I think, if it's during the time where the World Cup would have been on, probably not going to happen, but I'd love it. And it makes perfect sense. Next time they're in this part of the world or that part of the world, they should venture down to Australia.
Willie?
It'd be good to see them down here. Tasmania. Where's that? Hobart, is it?
Yep.
A quick shout out to the woman who sat next to me at the Everton game, who produced the Tanix caramel wafers at half time. Top notch. I was so delighted with that one. Sitting there, I've not seen these for ages since I moved down here. I was over the moon.
The old tea cakes?
No, it was the caramel wafers, the log ones.
Yeah.
I was delighted. I was over the moon. Like, it was excellent. Like, but aye. Nah, it'd be good to see them come down here, but as it stands, the game being off, it's just a marketing thing. There's no reason why we can't get Wolves up to Celtic Park or go down to Molyneux for the game. Just if it's for March sharpness, you know what I mean? There's no reason why that can't happen, but aye. Yeah.
So we got some comments here. Like Tony's agreeing with what you just said there, Willie. Can we play Wolves back in Glasgow?
Yeah.
Martin, hail. Yep. Just giving a shout out to your CSC. Andrew was the new manager will want the squad back home on the training track. I'd agree with all of that. It's the funny thing is the only thing I can think of would be the only thing I can think of is when's Tottenham in Perth again, Paul?
In a week or two. I think literally next, maybe the 15th.
I think, yeah.
There's an open training session on a Monday night, which I think is, if not, I think it might be a week on Monday, basically. So yeah, and then the game, I think, so the open training session is on Monday, I think, and then the game must be probably the Tuesday or the Wednesday night.
I was going to say, let's just
next week, probably.
If it linked up, let's just swing down to Perth, play another game there against Tottenham. You know, absolutely screw up Andrew's debut weekend at his new club and go about our business. Perfect. I'm not
be happy if they come back to Perth.
Anyway. So, Paul, I don't know if you guys do this on Monday where we have our final thought at the end of the pod. You can say anything you want, basically. Any one final thought? You just do
yeah,
something
we
similar.
do. And
Let's start off with you for that.
I sort of do a bit of a Johnny, so it's handy that I've kind of filled in for him while he's on his holidays. So I usually do a little bit of a music recommendation. So this week's recommendation is the debut album by a guy called Graham Chattin. He's the lead singer of Fontaine's DC, Irish band. His debut album is called Chaos for the Fly. Yeah, it's really good. And if you like the old Fontaine's DC stuff, then this is kind of a bit more of the same, maybe maybe not quite as heavy and rocky, but it's really good. So get your lugs around that.
Shane?
Well, mine's also music related this week, and it's actually I found out today actually that the always excellent Teenage Fan Club are going to be touring Australia around April, March next year. So Norman Blake, who's one of the three main members of Teenage Fan Club, a massive Celtic fan. I've loved Teenage Fan Club for many years. They're an awesome band. They make music that just you can sit back and enjoy anytime. So I'll be looking forward to seeing them when they come to Australia. Check out the dates on their website.
And Willie?
Witcher Season 3 on Netflix. Top-notch entertainment.
And for me, all I want to do is tell people that if you got me on social media on Saturday, bombard me, please, because I'm officially a year older that day. So get stuck in and make me feel super loved, okay? Thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
Yeah, hell.